Okay, well, it is 1:30, so Madam Clerk, you let me know when we have quorum.
Director Parkhurst did confirm his attendance. Actually, everyone did, except for Director Maloney. So, maybe one more minute. I know he's in Vermont now, so maybe running a little behind.
Mhm.
We do have 6 though.
1, 2, 3, 4, 6.
Oh, BNA. Okay, there she is. Okay, very good. We do have 6. Correct. Okay.
All right, then. Then I will go ahead and kick off the meeting this is the Executive Committee meeting of the Clean Power Alliance for Thursday, August 21st, 1:30 p.m. I will turn it right back over to you for a roll call.
Thank you. Chair Klein, Lopez,
I'm here.
Committee Member Maloney, Committee Member Gold,
Here.
Committee Member Santangelo,
I'm here.
and excuse me, let me allow Director Colchar in. Okay, Committee Member Montero. No. Committee Member Campbell.
Here.
Thank you. Committee Member Crosswhite,
Here.
Vice Chair Lopez,
Here.
and Committee Member Colchar.
Here. Good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you. And Director Parkhurst is coming in now.
Okay. Great.
There he is. Thank you.
Welcome.
So we're a minute late.
It's all good. We just started. We got you on the roll call.
Yes.
I will move next to public comment. I don't see any members of the public in your backgrounds, but please do let me know if I am mistaken or if we have any written public comment.
That's correct. No public comment was received.
Okay, then I will move right on to the consent agenda. Unless anyone has any comments or corrections, I will entertain a motion to approve our consent agenda.
I'll move approval.
I'll second.
Wonderful. I have a motion by Vice Chair Lopez and a second by Committee Member Santangelo to approve the consent agenda. Chair Klein Lopez,
Aye.
Committee Member Gold,
Yes.
Committee Member Santangelo,
Yes.
Committee Member Colchar,
She said yes.
yes, thank you. Committee Member Campbell,
Yes.
Committee Member Crosswhite, Director Crosswhite,
Yes.
thank you.
The space button wasn't working.
Thank you. Committee Member Parkhurst,
Yes.
thank you. And Vice Chair Lopez.
Yes.
Wonderful. Motion passes.
Great, thank you. Moving on to our regular agenda, we will start out with an oral update from our CEO on operations. So take it away, Ted.
Great, thanks. And thanks everyone, as always, for your time and for spending a few hours of the dog days of summer with us. Robert, you have your hand up?
Yeah, just a quick question. We didn't approve the minutes. We approved the agenda, but do we need to
No,
approve the minutes?
We just approved the minutes through.
Oh,
It was
it's
on the
consent
consent
calendar.
agenda.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm brain dead. My apologies.
No, only item on the consent agenda.
Yes, thank you for spending part of your summer. Let's acknowledge summer brain sometimes. A number of things since we haven't met in a couple of months that I just wanted to share. We're excited that we brought on over the summer 3 of our PowerShare projects. 1 in Hawthorne and 2 in Carson are now fully connected to CAISO and operating and sending out clean electrons to serve our PowerShare customers. We've got several more that are coming online this in the third quarter, and hopefully some new contracts coming to the board in the fall for our next round of Power Share, which there was a review team and the Energy Committee will be discussing next week. So that's super exciting. Another thing that happened over the summer was our instant AC savings, apropos of today's heat, program launched, which is providing $300 instant rebate for folks to purchase window air conditioners, efficient window air conditioners. And it's sort of the second program along with our EV Smart Charge that had, has had pretty quick and noticeable uptake. In the first few weeks, we got over a couple hundred requests for those rebates. It happened to coincide with the county, LA County, at a hearing that I was part of, passing the state's first maximum temperature ordinance for renters in the state. Congratulations to you, Rita, and others who worked at the county on that. So I think, we did a lot of marketing. There was a lot of news about that, and it's hot. So that's sort of a perfect storm for program uptake. So we're excited about that. Phase 7 enrollment, that's 33,000 potential customers, more or less, in our 3 new cities of La Cañada, Flint Ridge, Port Hueneme, and Linwood began. So that was when we say the enrollment began, that was the first notices went out on August 1st. So we've had now about 2.5, close to 3 weeks of customer activity. We're seeing about a 1.5% opt-out rate in the first few weeks, which is sort of typical, in line. I'd say a couple of things of note is that it's actually really 2 different stories. The opt-out rates in Port Hueneme and Linwood are quite low, in fact, below what we typically see at this point in the process. And La Cañada, Flint Ridge is higher. I think I attribute some of that to we've kind of been slow rolling not slow rolling, but there's been a buildup in Linwood and Port Hueneme through various events, and it's just sort of the community's beginning to understand. In La Cañada, Flint Ridge, this has been a high-profile subject of discussion and town hall meetings and all of that for several months now, and folks who had already decided to opt out leapt at the first opportunity, and that's why you saw something, in the big activity in the first week, and now it's fallen off. So we'll continue to track that, but nothing that we are surprised about necessarily or out of the ordinary. The other thing I'll note is just a recap of a little bit of our moving schedule these next couple of months. So we're meeting today. Our board meeting is September 4th. Our September XCOM is September 18th. That's all normal schedule. We have the board retreat on September 26th. And then October, the board meeting is being pushed out 2 weeks to October 16th. And then our XCOM meeting will be on October 23rd. So just like Annie, after this meeting, we'll send that all out to you to recap. So you have it and can put it in calendars. But and then November will be back on regular schedule. The last thing I'll note is I might slip in an additional optional event for you all in early October. It looks like we, along with the governor of New Mexico and others involved in the Pattern Sunzia project, may be getting an award from the Los Angeles Business Council at their annual sustainability awards, which is I think October 7th again, October 8th. And we'll invite the whole executive committee to that, assuming that gets confirmed. So that's what I've got. Any questions, comments about anything CPA related? Anything that I mentioned? All right.
Good stuff.
Good stuff.
All right. And then I'll kick it back to you for the next item, which is our draft agenda.
Okay. So a few things. On the consent agenda, we finally can say that we will get the equitable building decarbonization grant funding across the table. This took several months. First, making sure that we had negated our federal grant project risk through this, because this grant is a state grant, but partially funded by federal funds, but the federal funds are not what's funding our part of the grant. So there was that. And then there's just, I think at the state level, a little bit of skittishness of signing grant agreements on their side, really looking at everything. But we are participating in the team that is led by LA County. And again, congratulations, Rita, and the folks over at Internal Services over there. So we're looking forward to that. We're mostly a marketing partner, but it does bring direct install electrification measures to low-income communities in our service territory. Robert, I saw you had a hand up. Did you want to ask a question about that? No. Okay, great. Next item is we've got a couple of amendments. You may have heard me talk about this issue before, but we have two projects. They're relatively small from utility scale. They're each about 25 megawatts together. They're 50 megawatts with Berkshire Hathaway, Solar Star 3 and 4. They're well advanced in construction, but they've had some delays in fully processing and therefore constructing a part of their transmission that has to cross the LA aqueduct, which means getting permission to do that from DWP. So they are a little over a year delayed from their guaranteed commercial operation date. And typically, we only allow folks to pay liquidated damages for 3 months past that GCOD. But these are good projects. We want to keep them on track. We want to keep them in the portfolio. So we've been able to negotiate an agreement where we'll give them a little bit more than a year extra to deliver the projects, and in exchange for almost $10 million in payment to CPA for the delays. So I think it's a good outcome. We keep the projects. We get some penalty payment for them missing the deadline. The next is settlement software. This is software we use to validate all of the several $100 million of money that goes back and forth between us and CAISO every year. We have some pretty sophisticated software. We're in the process of finalizing negotiations with a vendor on that, and that'll be on consent. Looking as though it's a 3-year contract, or at least a 1-year contract with 2 optional renewals. Then just a couple of administrative items. We publish every year in September our annual electricity use by jurisdiction, which is nice for everybody to know where they stand, but also in the event that there was ever a weighted vote, that's the weight which we would give the votes. I'll remind you that that's never happened in CPA history.
Not even close.
Not even close. But we have to do it, and it's good to see where everybody is on the load. And then finally, we've been asked by the FPPC to make some changes to our conflict of interest code. It's basically all administrative to update titles and who's covered and all of that. It has nothing to do with, it's all about what staff is covered by Form 700s and other FPPC guidelines. It has nothing to do with the board and the elected officials. And in fact, the board doesn't have to approve it. This is administrative between us and the FPPC, but we wanted to make the board aware that these changes were being made. And just for your guidance, every CPA staff member, because we're relatively flat and we have a lot of people involved in decision making, every CPA staff member files a Form 700, just as part of their job. That's all I have on consent. Any questions there? All righty, breezing right through.
All right.
Deborah?
No, I was just gonna say, then we'll move on to the action items where we have separate presentations. Correct?
Yeah, I have one to mention, and then we've got separate presentations on this. So we have 3 items on the regular agenda. The first one is a proposed additional power purchase agreement with SunZia, which has gone through the Energy Committee process. Basically, the story is here. We have a 575 megawatt power purchase agreement with them. There are multiple off-takers. It's a 3,000 megawatt project. They signed up enough early on to get their construction financing, but they always had some unallocated remaining, and that they would then market as they moved very much closer to online date. And then they would go out and market that additional ones, knowing that they would get, or they would be able to market at a better de-risked price once that project was, much farther along in construction, which it is now. They were already talking about getting test energy from them later this year. So like we're really, and the guaranteed commercial operation date is not until October of next year. So we may be getting test energy as early as a year early, and they may also be online early. So there's no tax credit risk. The litigation risks is very low. Permitting, all of that stuff is kind of behind this project, which is unique in our world right now. So when they came to market some additional megawatts for us, we were very interested. The 2 unique things about it, one is that we don't need a lot of more renewables between now and about 2029. We're well procured, which is a good place to be. So we've structured the contract so that the first 2 years of this additional capacity will get RA only, rather than RA and the renewable energy. And then in 2029, when we really start to need it, we'll get the additional capacity, the additional 125. The other thing is it does come at a bit of a higher price than our original contract. It doesn't affect the original contract price, but it's a totally de-risked and at a price that is much, much better than we're seeing for other wind offers in our current RFO. So in terms of getting wind, it's a very we think it's a fair deal. So that will be on the agenda, assuming that we lock down a couple of last minute items with them. But it's been a relatively smooth negotiation because we already have a contract with them.
Hey, Ted, is there, have we set a profile of how much wind we actually want?
I think we don't want to be too solar heavy, I think is more the look at it. So we're always out there for looking at the geothermal and the wind. I think we kind of like getting as much as we could get. But Matt, I don't see Lindsay on, but Matt, do you have a view on how much wind?
It's more expensive, isn't it, than other things we might buy. So I'm just curious how that equation works.
Yeah.
So great question. So a couple of things. One is at some point, it keeps getting delayed by the PUC, but we're in a integrated resource planning cycle right now. So part of our IRP will look at what the future resource mix to achieve our portion of the state's goals and our own goals will be. So we'll have maybe a more specific numerical answer for that later in the year or early next year. What I can say on price is, although at least in recent years, wind has been nominally, like in terms of the actual price number, higher price than solar and storage, for example. What we see is that because wind delivers more so in the evening at night, that the value we get out of wind is a lot better than what we get out of solar, which is delivering in a lot in the middle of the day when energy prices are low. So when we do that net present value valuation that the review team looks at, and that we rank for the energy committee when we put those together, what we often find is that wind is competitive with solar from a value proposition perspective. It varies by offer and price and all that, but that's a little bit more on how we think of that.
I think it might be helpful, obviously not for today. For me anyway, maybe others want to know, but the offset between what we get for it and what we pay for it might be interesting as we talk about the acquisition of some of these things. So maybe if you could put together a little map of that at some point.
Yeah, we can think about how to do that. Also, Jillian, if you want us to show you some numbers, we can. This is the kind of conversation that we have in a lot of depth with the review committees, and Rita and Robert in particular have recently been on review committees. We actually dig into the numbers on that stuff. It's a little tricky to do it in this venue or in a full board venue because of confidentiality of the actual numbers.
Right.
Like I said, we'd be happy to have that conversation with any board member, but if you just want generally the mechanics, we can think about.
Well, and you can sterilize the data. I don't really want to know the who, and I understand the confidentiality piece. I'm just kind of, we can talk about it. It's just you triggered the thought with the conversation.
Yeah, we can definitely give that some thought and figure out something. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Questions?
All righty.
Ted, when you say test energy,
Yeah.
what does that mean cost wise? Like, are we paying for test energy? Or are we paying under the rate for our original contract? How does that work?
It's a discounted rate.
Yeah, it's a discounted rate because we don't get RA, because you can't get RA from it until you're till you're fully connected to the CAISO and everything is tested and all that, because the RA is providing the reliability, and so you've got to know that it's a discounted rate just for the energy and the renewables.
Interesting.
But
Okay.
but yes, I mean, yes, we do pay for
I
it, but
figure,
yes,
you gotta
but
pay
yes, we
something, but
also
I
get, yeah.
know
But
what.
yes, we also get the value.
Okay.
And we don't pay for the value we don't get, which is the RA.
Understood. All right.
All right.
I think we move on to our first presentation, which is very exciting.
Great. Okay. So, Annie, you can put it up. That's great. Thank you. So, I'm going to do this presentation, but I want to give a big shout out to Karen Schmidt, our Senior Director of Rates and Strategy, who's one of her many jobs is she and her team do all of the pre-work with new cities. That includes, or potential new cities. That includes, all of the back-end work to get historic data from Edison, looking at the customer profiles, interacting with city staff, usually prepping me to go and present to the full city council when they're deciding whether to do their studies. Normally Karen would do this presentation, but she's doing the next one, so I'll take on this one. Big shout out to her for that. Next slide, please. So just a quick summary. We've got two cities who have approached us. As you remember, we put a 1-year pause right around the board retreat last year. We put a 1-year pause on expansion. Cities that came to us, we basically said nothing until 2025 at least. Market conditions were really unfavorable, and we wanted to take in these 6 new cities and digest. But now we're back on the train. We have not done proactive marketing, so we've only really entertained people who come to us, and a lot more come to us for poking around than appear on this list. But these were the 2 cities that over the course of last year and earlier this year actually had council votes to do the feasibility study. And that's Cudahy in Southeast LA County and Fillmore in Ventura County, which is, as I've noted before, the last city in Ventura County that is not part of CPA. So this would fill all of that out. We'll talk a little bit about benefits, impacts. Just to remember on the process timeline, this is like a 2.5-year process. So we're like maybe 9 months into that 2.5 years. But if the board invites them to join in 2020, by the end of 2025, and they do join by the end of 2025, they would not begin service until 2027. So in 2026, we won't have any cities where we begin service. And then we will bring this, pending your recommendation, we will bring this to a board vote in September, and we would like you to provide a recommendation there. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about some of the priorities and where these cities fit. There's sort of geography, there's diversity, there's synergies with programmatic goals. I think both of these cities fill some of those priorities. Certainly Fillmore fills the geographic whole priority. And diversity, there's it's more it's lower income, but it's also more ag, which is interesting. Cudahy is a small city in Southeast LA County, very noted for its heavy policy emphasis in more recent time on environmental justice. If you recall, they were the city upon which a Delta Airlines flight dropped fuel on their city. And out of that emerged a lot of leadership around environmental issues in the city. So they've always been, we didn't do proactive outreach, but they've always been interesting to us on staff. And it's, I think, no secret that we found each other. They are small. As you see, we're talking about 11,000 potential customers, 1% of our load. For comparison, the phase 6 and phase 7 cities have been more in the 3 to 4% of our load. So again, it's small. And you see where they would rank out of our 38. Again, very small. Next slide, please. So we go through our feasibility study. Just a reminder that we really focus on what's the potential impact at a rate level, at a revenue level, on CPA and its existing customers, with the caveat that there's a lot of uncertainty because a lot of that impact is driven by energy prices and or the PCIA. And energy prices have started to calm down a little bit. They're hopefully operating in a much narrower band these days, but the PCIA is, as a trailing indicator, is going to still be volatile. So you'll see in the study results that there's a pretty wide variation of expected outcomes, or potential outcomes. That is not unique. That phase 6 and phase 7 said the same thing, but it's really about the energy price impacts and where those things. Given all of that, bottom line is the impact is small. It's partly small because just the number of customers and the amount of load is small. I think the other thing, in terms of, if we saw this kind of variability while trying to add a very big city, let's say a Long Beach or a Torrance or a Southgate, we might not say that the overall magnitude of financial impact is small, and we would have a different kind of discussion maybe than these. Next slide, please. Benefits, obviously, we like to expand choice. We like to expand environmental benefits to others. Economies of scale, a little less with this amount of cities. But with this would be bringing our JPA membership to 40. And I know at the last board retreat, we kind of talked a little bit about that as a marker for, okay, let's maybe take another pause at that number and see how governance is working and making sure we're able to serve all of these cities before we went much further than that. So I recognize that, wanted to bring that to the fore. On the financial impact, it's very small, and we've got the numbers on the next slide. The last bit, and this is, we went through this with phase 6 cities, is there is, if a CCA wants to expand, it's got to be in full compliance with its RA obligations. We are, so we therefore think that this would be a pretty smooth approval process at the CPUC for a 2027 launch date. Next slide. So here's what we're looking at, and we kind of did 3 scenarios, which you can think of as the bookend. We just did it for clean power to simplify, because that's the parity rate with Edison. We rather than looking at the Edison rates, where they're, maybe they're operating in a slower band, we really looked at PCIA and what the PCIA volatility would be. So best case scenario, PCIA where it is. Worst case scenario, it swings 5 cents in the other direction, which would be really bad. So you see what the first year net revenue impact might be in those scenarios, and then we've broken it out into monthly bill impacts. I'll note that scenarios where there's been a negative, a possible negative outcome has not been disqualificatory in the past, but because what we've done here, we show those last 2 rows are what we saw in the potential outcomes for phase 7 and phase 6. So what we presented was, for phase 7, a pretty wide outcome. For phase 6, we actually showed that it was going to cost the CPA. It actually turned out, because of where the PCIA landed and where energy prices landed, to be a positive impact on net revenue from Santa Paula and Monrovia and Hermosa Beach. So lots to say. This can go a lot of different ways. We tried to bookend it, and these are certainly manageable numbers. Next slide. Here's process. We do need to let these cities know one way or another by September, because then they need to pass ordinances by the end of the year to join the JPA, so that in December we could bring a revised implementation plan. And then there's that year-long or more wait. And I think last slide. So yeah, so questions, comments, thoughts, and then we'd like to get a recommendation from you.
Right. I see. Let's see, Director Crosswhite.
Just a quick question that occurred to me, not necessarily directly about these cities, although I know one of them didn't have a unanimous vote, and it raised a question. I just, have we ever had a city that left once they had joined? And
go ahead.
And if someday in the future a city changed their mind, is there a process for that? Or I was just, it was just something that I just kind of went, oh, you join, and then that's that. But I didn't, it's something that I don't know if I've ever thought to ask.
Yeah. So 2 questions, or a couple of answers. One is, we've never had a city join and then change its mind. We appreciate when votes to join are unanimous or close to unanimous, because it reduces the risk of an election and things changing. There is a process to leave, but it's a process where the outcome for the city is highly risky, because they have to reimburse us for the net energy costs that we have incurred on their behalf. So I very much stress to new cities when they're considering, and I think you probably remember that like this is a big decision, and please be all in if you're doing that. Don't think you can easily change course. And so I think, last year with our phase 7 cities, it was unanimous or 4-1 in all 3 of those cities.
And then just a comment. I do think that, as you stated, and I remember I was part of the governance discussion, that I think 40 is a number at which, because I know it seems like some of those discussions take quite some time. And so it will be something that we need to watch, especially once we get to 40, how that's working in terms of the length of the meetings.
Yeah, and I think that's partly another like pause thing, and let's have a discussion at the board level again about it and how it's working. Thank you.
So just to clarify, Ted, if a city were to leave, it would get its own special little PCIA. Is basically what you're saying.
Basically, that's it.
Got it.
And that's
Fair.
That's a liability of the city's general fund.
Yeah. Fair. Okay, Director Parkhurst.
Can you tell us a little bit about the demographics of these cities?
Yeah, so I'll say that Cudahy is closer to Linwood in terms of of our cities, of any of the cities. So I think it's 80% ish Latino. It's over 50% of the residential customers are on care. Linwood is over 50% as well. I think it might even be 60. The predominant load is residential. This is Cudahy I'm talking about. Is predominant load is residential. There's a little bit of industrial, but it's not a big industrial city in the southeast like Commerce or even Southgate, some of the others. And there are a couple of unique loads that I can't really get into, but that's it's mostly residential, and it's a lot of low-income customers.
So I know you can't get into the details with the unique customers. Are there any of them that are unique customers like they were for La Cañada, Flint Ridge, or Port Hueneme? Okay.
No, it's a if you can think about high energy users growing things in urban locations, you might be able to figure it out.
Does that then pose any other risks for us? I mean, sometimes.
No.
I don't know. Yeah.
Not big enough. Not big enough in terms of the overall.
Okay.
Load.
Got it.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. And then, sorry, Fillmore.
Oh yeah.
Fillmore, also predominantly residential load. We think of Fillmore as an agricultural town, but much of the agricultural load in and around Fillmore is actually already in our service territory because it's unincorporated LA County. The Jenny knows this, but what maybe we would say the city limits of Fillmore versus greater Fillmore, which is funny that I think of it that way, but is much smaller. So I was actually surprised to see there was a little less agricultural load in the city of Fillmore than I expected. So again, I think it's a mixture of low income, and then there's also been new housing development in Fillmore, so some bigger homes, more suburban than older.
Well, if we're at the point, I may just be a little bit presumptuous, and I would go ahead and make a motion to, invite the cities of Cudahy and Fillmore to join CPA in 2025.
See, Ventura has unmuted. Vice Chair Lopez, did you want to add to that or second the motion?
I will second that. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Okay, thank you so much. I have a motion by Director Parkhurst and a second by Vice Chair Lopez to approve item number 4.
Can I just clarify that this is a motion to recommend to the board?
Yes.
It's the board who has to invite. So
sorry.
Thank you for the correction. So amended.
Okay.
Thank you, Ted. Okay, Chair Klein Lopez, how do you vote?
Aye.
Committee Member Maloney?
Yes.
Committee Member Gold?
Yes.
Committee Member Santangelo?
Yes.
Committee Member Colchar?
Yes.
Thank you. Committee Member Campbell?
Yes.
Committee Member Crosswhite?
Yes.
Committee Member Parkhurst?
Aye.
Vice Chair Lopez?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Motion passes.
Very exciting. This will be great to bring to the board. Thank you, Ted. All right. And the last agenda item is also an exciting one. The discussion of a new rate option. So Ted, why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I'm going to kick it over to Karen Schmidt, Senior Director of Rates and Strategy. I'll just note that this is the first time we really talked with, we talked conceptually with the board during the last retreat about how you use rates to potentially alter behavior, but also get people to save money and also save CPA on procurement costs. And this is the first time we've actually, since there was the statewide default to TOU, that we've actually talked about being proactive other than just offering options. But because of that, we've sort of said, we want to hear from you guys about sort of generally the idea and some things we should be thinking about. We will do the same with the board in 2 weeks before we figure out if we want to do this and actually get it approved and actually implement. So this is all feedback, questions, thoughts session with you all before we go further. So in that spirit, I'll hand it over to Karen.
Thanks. Happy to be here this afternoon to talk about this proposal. Go ahead to the next slide. So last year, as you may or may not recall, the board did approve this new residential rate. At the time, we had it inelegantly named the TOU-D-prime-SOP rate, SOP standing for super off-peak. And this was a rate pattern on the TOU-D prime rate that had lower daytime rates and higher overnight rates in order to encourage customers with EV chargers or other home electrical load to shift that load from overnight to the daytime hours when electricity is cheapest and cleanest. Thankfully, our communications and marketing team came up with a much more appealing name than TOUD Prime SOP. So we will be promoting this new rate as TOU Smart, particularly to customers who are enrolled in or who we are also encouraging to enroll in our EV Smart Charge program as a way for them to further reduce their EV charging costs. In addition to having this rate available as it now is as an opt-in for customers who are interested, what we are proposing here is to also launch a pilot, a two-year pilot, where we would default about 2,600 customers onto the new rate in order to get some more meaningful data and assessment on its impact and value in promoting beneficial load shifting and reducing CPA energy costs. The participants in the default would be customers who are already on the TOUD Prime rate, which is designed specifically for customers with large electrical load at home from their HVAC, EV chargers, or other equipment. Our thinking is that customers who were defaulted onto the TOU Smart rate would be able to opt out and go back to the TOUD Prime rate or switch to another residential rate at any time, and that they would receive bill protection for the first 12 months. And we'll talk a little more about that. And again, the intent of the pilot would be to inform future rate design recommendations to promote beneficial load shifting. And as Ted noted, we're not asking for a decision at this point. We are just looking for your feedback and input on the pilot. Next slide. So this is just a refresher on the rate itself that is, we already have in place that the board approved last year. On the chart on the left shows the TOUD Prime rate structure with the higher on-peak rates from 4 to 9 p.m. each day, and then the off-peak rates, which are basically flat from 9 p.m. at night all the way through the day until the 4 p.m. on peak hour. So no differentiation between daytime and overnight rates. The TOU Smart rate now, again, we've lowered the daytime rates from 8 to 4 p.m. This is, of course, when solar power typically is abundant. It's when power is cheap, when GHG emissions are lowest. And then we offset that by an increase in the overnight off-peak hours. So for an average customer, if they make no changes to their load shifting, the rate is revenue neutral. The decrease in the super off-peak rate is offset by the increase in the off-peak hours. Next slide. So for customers who are able to shift their load, there is a potential for reducing their electricity bills. We are, starting this fall, we are going to be promoting the rate in conjunction with marketing of the EV Smart Charge program. However, we know that, for opt-in types of programs, the voluntary enrollment is likely to be quite low. Maybe a few dozen, maybe a few hundred, but probably not enough of a sample size to give us any meaningful insight into the impact of the rate on customer behavior. And we estimate that we would need a sample size of at least 2,000 to 3,000 in order to get statistically significant insights. Next slide. So hence, we've been thinking about and are proposing a pilot where we would automatically default about 2,600 customers onto the new rate for 2 years, potentially starting in spring of 2026. We arrived at that number. Our load forecasting team did the heavy lifting on this to come up with a number that would ensure that we can detect a meaningful change in monthly usage compared to a control group with a 95% confidence that it's a significant versus random change. The pilot would, the idea, our intention, our hope is that the pilot will enable us to evaluate the impact of the new rate on customer behavior, customer load shifting, and bills in response to those price signals. We would also hope to get information on customer participation. Do they, stay with it? Do they opt out? We plan to do some post-pilot surveys to understand customer experience and satisfaction with their participation. And of course, we want to look at the impact on our revenue and cost of service. The results would help inform our thinking and recommendations around extending the TOU smart rate and potentially other new rates and programs. So if we see a significant shift in customer behavior as a result of the rates, we might consider making this structure the default for all TOUD prime customers. The insights into customer price elasticity might inform our thinking and potential modifications to the TOU rate differentials for other residential TOU rates. And the information that we get from customer surveys could help inform targeting and messaging for future marketing and education campaigns. Next slide. So what we're proposing is that we would randomly select the participants from the pool of our existing non-NEM customers who are on TOUD prime, and that's a population of about 30,000 across our service territory. Incidentally, our plan would be to exclude NEM customers from the pilot because of the way NEM rates are structured and the retail credit that customers get when their solar panels are producing. It might actually be a negative bill impact for NEM customers. So we would exclude them. They can opt into the rate if they choose, but we would not include them in the default pilot. We also would only select from customers who have been with CPA for at least 1 year. So we would not be including customers, for instance, in the communities that are starting service this October, who are already dealing with enough changes in their electricity service. We would send at least 2 notices by mail to customers in advance, explaining their enrollment in the pilot, how they can benefit from it, where to get more information, and of course, how they can opt out. And they would be able to opt out via all the normal means. They could do self-service on our website, do it by email, do it by calling customer service, and talking to a live person or using the automated prompts. We also intend to send out at least 1 or 2 emails during the pilot to let customers know about how they're doing and how they can provide tips on how they can reduce their electricity costs. And at the end of the 12-month bill protection period, they would get basically a report on their performance. And if their total bills over that 12-month period ended up being more than they would have paid on the regular TOUD prime rate, they would receive a bill credit for the difference. So there's no downside to their participation in the pilot. In many ways, this is, is analogous to the process that customers went through with the residential TOU default. In terms of the notification, the ability to opt out, the information about their performance and their options relative to other rate options. Next slide. So our proposed timeline, if we were to move forward, would be to later this fall and winter to prepare the customer materials, web information on the website, work with our billing agent to be ready to incorporate the information into the billing and the bill protection calculations. In January and February, we would begin the actual customer outreach. We would likewise, starting in the fall, but continuing into the winter, we would be doing outreach separately to EV owners to promote opting into the new rate. In March, we would begin the actual enrollment of the selected default customers onto the new rate. The bill protection period would go through March of the following year, 2027. And then in 2028, then we would conclude the pilot and evaluate the results and decide, what we want to do based on those results. And one of the options might be that if we determine that the rate does not have a significant impact, that we might simply discontinue it. Next slide. So at this point, we are eager to hear your feedback, comments, questions on the structure and design of the pilot, the timing, customer communications, any other parts of the proposal. As Ted noted, we are planning also to request feedback from the full board in September. And depending on the feedback that we get, we could potentially bring the program to the board for formal approval as early as October. That concludes my presentation. Happy to take questions.
All right, thank you, Karen, so much. I'm sure there are a lot of questions. Let's start with Director Gold.
There we go. Well, thank you. I think it's an interesting program. I certainly appreciate the intent of it. And I'm not a statistician, but I've lived some part of my life with study design, and I have to say I have a couple of questions about the study design. 2,600 people randomly. I guess the next question is, why is the study not more targeted to the population that we're trying to impact? So a random sampling will have, it makes a difference if you're at home during the daytime or not, whether or not this will be of any benefit to you. And obviously people who are at home will see a better benefit than those who are not. But for them, it's simple. There's no reason not to do it. But if somebody isn't at home during the daytime, they're likely not to see a benefit. And they're the ones who are likely to opt out. So why wouldn't we look at a sample that is that? There are people whose usage is not during the times that we want it to be. I guess that may not have been clear, but that's sort of the essence of the question.
Yeah, it's a good question. So part of the answer is that, it's not random in the sense that we are focusing on TOUD prime customers. So these are customers that presumably have already self-selected as having a large electricity load at home. I think, our insight into whether customers are at home during the day is limited. But I think it's something that we can take back to our load forecasting team to talk about whether whether we might be able to use historical load data to form a more targeted, to identify a more targeted pool for the pilot.
I
Go
think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, people whose behavior is already the behavior we want aren't the people we ought to be studying, unless you think by lowering their rate, somehow they're not going to want to do this. I can't see that happening. So I would, to the extent that we know what people's load is, I would exclude the people whose behavior is already what we want the behavior to be. And then I would target everybody else to see within the broader, the broader cohort, and see if we could actually change their behavior to get to the behavior that we want. The second thought, a little bit of issue with stopping the bill protection after a year. Unless and until we can really make sure people know that if they were disadvantaged by this, because they're going to get it back in at the end of the first year, but somebody who's not really paying attention could sort of wander into that second year, not recognizing that they were at risk here, that the second year you will not have bill protection. And in fact, if this is not the best program for you, it's going to hurt you. So I think that we have to be very, unless we were going to have bill protection for 2 years, I would want to see that. The third piece is it is conceivable. I don't know if it's likely, but it's not beyond the realm of possibility that we could actually lose some money in this. And I think that at some point, if we're tracking this month over month, there ought to be a way to pull the plug if it really looks like it's costing us a lot of money and not really achieving whatever our goals are. I mean, if we're willing to lose, I don't know if you've done the analysis of what the maximum cost to us over a course of that 1 year where we're providing bill protections, but I don't know, it seems to me that out the gate, if it's pretty clear that we're losing money here, I would, at the very least, it should be a conversation for the executive committee and or the board. I think that's really true. And my fourth point, and again, I should probably caveat it all by saying I think it's a great idea. It's the way the pilot is set up that gives me a little bit of indigestion. I would want to be really clear that if somebody is automatically enrolled in this and they decide to opt out, that the path to opting out of this program is clearly separate and distinct from opting out of CPA. Because you could see somebody not really understanding what they're doing. And we're saying, well, if you don't like it, you can opt out. And the next thing we know, they're an Edison customer. So I think that we have to be super clear and maybe in some way create a path to opting out of this that is just firewalled from the path that would opt them out of CPA. I have some concerns, and I probably have others, but I'll give up the floor for the moment.
Great. Not sure if you want to respond to any of that or if you're just taking notes and then, or should we just keep?
Yeah, I'm definitely taking notes on
Okay.
just a couple of quick notes. One is, we've had discussion internally and we'll, have additional discussion about the duration of the bill protection. One argument for stopping it is to see if there's an impact on customer behavior when they don't have the assurance that they can't lose, that there's no way that they'll lose money. And then on the financial impact of CPA, we'll definitely take that back. I will note that the cost of CPA in terms of bill credits for bill protection would bring our revenue back to what it would otherwise have been in terms of if the customers had just been on TOUD Prime. And the total dollar impact is likely to be limited by the fact that it's just 2,600 customers.
Okay.
Yeah, could I just add on that? I think the only scenario where we could lose money here is if somehow you had on a massive scale the opposite effect of what the rate design is supposed to do. So like if a lot of people shifted more energy to the nighttime where it's now going to be more expensive in the pilot, that energy is more expensive for us to procure. So that would be a cost. But otherwise, like what Karen said, you're talking about just worst case scenarios, people pay what they would have paid, or they're saving money because they're doing the behavior change we want, which saves us money too. So it's a good aligned design.
Okay. Director Campbell.
Thanks. Yeah, I guess a couple of things. One, I was curious, maybe they're similar, curious if to the point about the bill protection, what communication the customer is going to get about how the past year went, and is there going to be any education about what worked in terms of their behavior or didn't, just so, just continue that behavior change. And then the other question was just when can we expect to hear report outs about the performance of the program? Will it be at the very end, or will you have like milestones in between where you're able to report out on metrics and how the program is going?
That's a great question. So to your first question, so our intent is that customers would get at least one communication sort of mid-year, most likely via email for customers who have email addresses, but by mail otherwise, letting them know how they're doing and are they saving money, or gee, you're not losing money because of bill protection, but here's some tips for how you can reduce your bills. And then at the 12-month mark, they would get a mailing informing them of their performance over the course of the year. Did they save money? Did they get a bill credit? And letting them know how and when they'll see the bill credit on their bill. Letting them know, again, if we decide to end the bill protection at 12 months, letting them know that they can stay on this rate, or they can switch back to TOUD Prime if they prefer, or if they think their bills will do better on that rate. In terms of reporting results to the board, I think we would certainly at minimum be reporting to you at the 12-month mark and the 2-year mark. I think, if we have interesting results to share in the interim periods, we will be happy to report on that.
Okay, thank you. I love all the hands. I see you all. Thanks. We'll do Director Crosswhite and then Director Colsar.
Took my hand down but I didn't unmute myself. Too many buttons to push. My first question was just how does the modified, because there's the TOUD Prime, and that was sort of set at a certain rate per kilowatt hour. And so in this new rate design, the TOUD Smart, it goes up a little bit during those times when it was lower, but then down during the day. So right. How does that little bit up compare to like if someone wasn't on these rates at all?
if they weren't on TOUD Prime?
Right, like if they just were a normal CPA customer, what is the cost per kilowatt hour?
So the structure is similar if you're on a TOUD 4 or D5. I think, and Matt can correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the on-peak, the differential between the off-peak and on-peak is less for customers on the TOUD4 or TOUD5. And of course, the difference between TOUD4 and TOUD5 is the duration of that on-peak period. TOUD5 is 5 to 8 p.m., 4 is 4 to 9 p.m.
We could maybe send you that as a follow-up. That's I guess not the kind of information we have instant recall over.
Okay.
There's also a lot of customers who are still on the regular tiered rates that aren't time of use at all. So there's a really kind of diverse mix now of the different rates that residential customers are on.
Okay, I guess maybe it's the regular tiered rate then is the one that I was trying to kind of imagine how this compares to that. But all right, I'll leave that.
I think you could look at them, just say the regular tiered rate. First of all, it depends on what tier you're in, how much usage you have. But in general, the tiered rate is going to be like between the on-peak rate and the lower off-peak rate. Like it's averaging somewhere in between.
Okay. So, oh gosh, this is just a whole, I have had lots of thoughts as we've gone through this, and there was a lot of big, long discussion. So I'm trying to track all of the thoughts that I'd had. One thought was that I'm a little bit concerned. I know that we had said in the presentation, it was in the packet about, well, maybe this would become the default. And I'm not sure how I feel about that, given that unless you're retired or work from home, you're not going to be able to do the majority of your, electric use between 8 and 5 or 8 and 4. So I guess I was a little bit, because I don't know that everyone who's on that is necessarily EV chargers, but also if you're not home, you can't do your laundry during the day or run the dishwasher or those kinds of things. And so it'll be interesting to see if, if we move forward with this pilot, how like some of those activities, again, unless you're retired or work from home, are going to have to happen off, even if you're trying really hard to charge during the day. And so whether or not there's enough offset during the day so that you're still breaking even on those other activities. And because I don't have a sense of how much, I assume that your charging is one of your larger electric uses, but I just don't know with those other things being at a higher rate than they are currently, what that will look like for folks who aren't working from home, and then on those times when someone had a meeting out for the day and then has to end up charging at night, like how that all over the course of the year or the month, how that all plays out. Another question that I had was, how will we determine, so if someone drops out in the middle of the year, how will we then calculate whether or not they were paying more at that point, or will it still come at the end of the year? Right. So if someone does the whole 12 months, then obviously you would look over the course of the year and have a comparison. But let's say they're 3 months in and they go, oh, this is costing me more, I'm dropping out. How does that logistic play into our guarantee?
Yeah, and that's an easy answer. It would work the same as the residential TOU build protection and really any other build protection that we've done at CPA, as far as I'm aware. If a customer drops out, they get bill protection for the period that they were enrolled. Likewise, if they close their account, they would get, they would basically get settled up based on the period that they were in the pilot.
So we would do that at the time that they dropped out. Okay, yeah. That's what so we'd have some way to track, oh, this person changed back to the other rate structure, and now we'll do a true up.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And that's something we've done before for other programs. So.
And then I think it would be important at the end of those 12 months, if they were someone who ended up with a rebate because they had paid more, that along with that rebate came a very clear instruction of, it appears that this may not have been the right rate for you. This is how you can make sure you get on a better rate, so that then they don't continue over, whether we include the a second year of protection or not, so that they would be reminded then that that year is up and it's probably time for them to consider a different rate schedule. I don't know, that's what I have at this point. Probably I had other thoughts earlier, but that's what I can remember right now.
Great. And I just want to do a quick time check. It's 10 to 3. I'm okay if we go over. This isn't an action item. So just, I'm happy to keep it going if we go over. I think this is really important feedback for staff. But again, if somebody has to drop off, totally understand. We're going to go to, where did she go? Director Kolsar, and then Director Maloney.
Okay, thank you. I will talk fast. Does this only apply to residential, or can commercial customers get looped into this?
Only residential.
Okay. I agree with Director Gold in his statement about the opt-out, maybe a different language, like stay on your current rate instead of the opt-out phrase. I would like to see, if this moves forward, how many accounts per city are impacted. I did a quick math. It's like 86. If we just did it divided by 30 cities, about 86 potential customers. I mean, I feel like CPA staff does a really, really great job. This is a comment that does a really great job on programs in general. I feel like you probably don't need to do this automatic opt-in, that you would get enough participation, but I'm sure staff has done some due diligence and feels that, I know the staff report talked about that you don't feel like you would get enough, but I think you guys do great, so I think you would, but we'll leave it at that. The last thing is, I'm not quite clear, and we don't have to get into it now, but maybe later, as this continues to move forward. For those customers that, let me see my writing. For those customers that didn't change their behavior while they were on the program, they will get their true up at the end of their 12 months. But are they going to be automatically re-enrolled in their former rate, or are they going to stay on the defaulted rate that they got put into? Just something to think about. Okay, that concludes my comments. Thank you.
Okay, great. Director Maloney, and then Director Santangelo.
Real quick, I think there's some good value in collecting this information to see how the tweak in these rates would apply, and I think overall the potential risk and the maximum exposure for the agencies, it's not huge. So I think it's worth it to risk that in a sense, to find out what would work for these customers. My question is, what's more valuable to us? Is it seeing if this would save people money without sort of a intentional change in behavior, or do we want the people enrolled in this to really try to save money? Which is more valuable to the, what kind of information is more valuable to CPA? Because I think that might affect how we do the follow-up and how we talk about this. Postcards are great. I read them all. Thank you for sending them. But we know that lots of people do not read those things and they throw them out. So people may be enrolled. They may not even know they're enrolled. And if they really had some additional outreach, and I know we really do try our best, but there's only so much you can do. If they internalized it, perhaps they would change their behavior more. So I'm curious, especially as a EV driver for the last 5 days now, how this would roll out and how it would affect behavior.
I guess I'll just say, from my perspective, the number one objective is to provide an incentive for customers to shift load. Some customers may simply benefit because of their existing usage patterns. There's a case to be made that this, the rate is aligning better with our cost to serve those customers. But to me, the primary objective is incentivizing, those customers, say it's an EV user, that, at least, 1 or 2 or several days a week, they shift their charging pattern to save themselves some money and bring down our costs.
Okay, Director Santangelo, followed by Director Parkhurst.
Thank you so much. There have been a lot of really great questions and discussion so far, so I'll try to make it quick. First of all, to Julian's point about really who the study targets, I see his point and I see the value of getting those customers' behavior and understanding that. My issue, though, would be with trying to opt in by default customers that already haven't expressed an interest in seeking out a different rate, if that makes any sense. I was wondering if there would be a benefit to making the pilot group larger. I'm not a statistician either, but I was just wondering if that would get us more information.
Yeah, I guess a quick response would be, I think the larger the participant pool, the more robust the results would be. But the more customers would be impacted before we've had an experience, sort of tested customer reaction to the rate.
I'll also say it's diminishing return statistically.
Yeah.
So I think,
Okay.
Karen, correct me if I'm wrong, I think at this sample size, we'd have 95% confidence in the results. To get from 95 to 99 is probably many multiples of that. So I think we were satisfied that you get a good resolution at that level. It was a good balance of the number of customers and reasonable confidence.
Okay. And then finally, I'll just end with what others have said I think outreach is the key. It seems to always be with so many of our programs. And so a really robust program of outreach and education is really going to be important with this. That's all I've got. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, Director Parkhurst, followed by a question from me.
So building on the communication part of this, I occasionally get emails and post mail from SCE about my rate plan, about, they call it, the rate planning coach. How are we learning from what they're doing? How are we going to differentiate? How do we make sure that we're not conflicting communication with them with relation to this program?
It's a good question for us to look at. We try hard to have close communication with SCE about the communications that they're sending to our customers and vice versa, and it'll be something for us to pay even closer attention to with the pilot.
Yeah, because I may be going a little bit off tangent on it, but sometimes to me that the choice of what power you have and your rate, the one seems to be largely an Edison thing for the most part, and one is us. And so it seems like we're starting to, and I think we're going to continue to just starting to blur the lines between these going forward. And I think that making that really clear is going to be important.
Okay, and then I have a question that, Ted, I tried to ask you this when we met and chatted about this, and I don't think I got it out right. So let me try again. If the idea, so I charge my car overnight, because I have no incentive, my rate's the same, right? My rate's the same whether I charge it at 3 in the morning or whether I charge it at 8 in the morning. So I understand why if you're going to lower a super off-peak rate, if you're going to lower run rate, you need to up another rate. But am I oversimplifying it and thinking, why can't we just keep the regular off-peak rate the same, lower the super off-peak, because we are procuring the energy more cheaply. So if we are procuring, I'm assuming, right? That's the whole point. If we are able to procure the energy between 8 and 3 p.m. at a less expensive rate because it's solar and we're long and it's cheap, why can't we just directly pass that along with a margin, of course, to the customers? Why do we have to increase the off-peak, bring in this complicated calculation that people are going to have to make? Why can't we just say, if you charge between 8 and 3, it's cheaper for us, it's cheaper for you? Does that make sense? Am I trying to understand why it's a little more complicated than maybe it has to be?
I guess my off the cuff response would be, that perhaps what we learned from the pilot might inform a strategy like that. The way we designed the rate to begin with is so that it's revenue neutral. So if we do what you're suggesting and customers don't do anything differently, we will get less revenue from those customers. That it will cost us.
Okay. That was my other question.
I'm aiming for a situation where to your point, Deborah, where it could be free during the day. We'd get a lot more charging if we could advertise that. Because one thing we might find out from this is that we might find out a couple of things. One is the differential you have to make to alter people's behavior is much higher than what we've done here. Like you need it to be 10x. I don't know what it would be. The other thing we might find is that if it's successfully paired with an automatic charging, whether that's through your car or through our app, that just a small difference will trigger the automatic function. And you don't need much difference if people are automated. So there's a wide variety of things, but to Karen's point, it might be, we might find out that maybe the rate was designed to be revenue neutral, but we're getting more value at it, and you could adjust.
Director Gold.
I know everybody wants to go, but I just, Jenny said something that triggered a thought. There are too many variables in this play. I'd love to charge my car at noon, but I'm not home at noon. And I can't change my life to be home at noon. So this doesn't work in that setting it only works for people who have the freedom of their lifestyle to be able to do that kind of thing. And if you don't know, and again, it goes back to who we're going to ask. If you don't know what that is, if they don't have the freedom to be home at noon and charge their car, then really what do we accomplish by this? And I don't know how you know that up front, but really the people who would most benefit, only people who would benefit, are the people who are home between 8 and 3 in the afternoon. So anyway, I'm done.
Director Crossway.
Yeah, just one final thought on that is because I've been trying to think through it, like as someone who has some days has the flexibility to be home, like trying to weigh, like if that was an option, whether or not I would pick it, even though we try to charge during the day when we can, right? Because I'm trying to imagine like, okay, but I don't, I'm working during the day. So doing the dishes and doing the laundry and doing all those other things, like that's still going to be at night. And if it's been a really hot day and you're trying really hard not to use electricity between 4 and 9, you're going to have to cool down the house at some point, because at 9 o'clock last night, it was still 85 degrees in my house, so like, I was just trying to think through like how much, like for myself, would I pick that rate? Like if there was no, security to know that if it didn't work out, you'd get something back. Like, I don't know if I would pick that rate without kind of not being sure if I was going to be able to do enough of that during the day. So anyway, that was just what I've been trying to think through.
Just real quick, I think this whole conversation gets at the philosophical underpinnings of time of use rates, just in general, like not even this one, right? So, right now it's structured so that between 4 and 9, if you're on a time of use rate, you pay a lot more, and you pay the rest of the time you pay somewhat less. I think if the rates had been designed the way we designed them now, I don't think people would have questioned it much. So sometimes you're working against the inertia of the way things are. When you look at our cost of service, and I think we shared some of this analysis when we originally got the optional version of the rate approved. Like, it's pretty clear that during the day it costs us less to procure power than it does at night, but the price is the same to the customer.
Right.
So I think this is a good discussion for you all to have, and like for the organization to consider what we want to do. But I think it's the same basic conversation you're having about time of use generally. And then I think Robert brought this up about the communication that Edison has done, and I got that same communication at my house. I discovered there was a problem with the rate I was on. I changed it, or I fixed some things about what I was doing. The bill protection part of that is pretty helpful, I think, for customers who, like the folks on this call, are really engaged, right? Because you can say, well, I guess I'll give it a try for the first year and see if I'm a benefiter on this, or if it's a net cost to me, and then you can switch out of it if that's not the case. I think it's trickier, the question Ted raised about, what about people who just aren't really paying attention? Like, they're probably doing the same thing no matter what. But it's a good discussion for us to all be having.
All right.
Right. Thank you for the feedback on this. We'll also think about how to have this discussion at the board meeting.
Yeah, take this and multiply it by what? 4 to 5.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Thank you for the feedback. For definitely what we were looking for.
Okay, fantastic. All right. Do we have any director comments, or committee member comments, I should say? All right. Well, then our next XCOM meeting is our normal time, right? It's September 18th, 2025. October gets a little wonky, but we will adjourn at, I just lost the time, 3:07, and we will see this body on September 18th. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.